Hello everyone and welcome to my first commentated career video. In this video we'll have a race around Monaco. In the last video, which I'll put a link to in the description, we had the qualifying session and I actually managed to qualify on pole. In order to do this I had to use a full downforce setting, so I expect to be not very quick in the straights in this race, but I expect to be better in the corners. But then again, I am in a Caterham, so perhaps the Red Bulls will still be better, or whoever's behind me. Okay, so let's get going then. Okay, so as we can see, as I go over to the teammate section, I am absolutely thrashing my teammates, not beating me on anything. I just tweak my setup to be one more lap, so I'm going to go to lap 9 of 20 on the soft tyres, and then going to go to the prime on lap 9 and try and do 11 laps on the prime hard tyre. Okay, so here we go. So there I am then on pole position, with Button just behind me, then Mark Webber in the Red Bull, there's Fernando Alonso, and there's my teammate way back in 22nd. Okay, so on the start then, a few little revs to make sure my throttle's working. Looking behind me to see who's directly behind me, as I just described. Okay, 4 lights, 5 lights. And there we go, off straight to full rich mixture and using a bit of curves to make sure I get a good start. Checking behind me, seeing how far, plenty of room. Broke a little bit early, but that's fine, just making sure I get through the corner safely. Using the rest of my curves up this hill just to make sure I get a good launch and just make sure I've got plenty of distance from them. I will probably use my rich mixture for the first couple of laps just to try and build a bit of a gap if I can. So here we go then. So this track is actually really difficult. I mean, even more so in qualifying, just trying to get that perfect lap. But compared to 2011, it's so hard. It's mainly because of all the bumps, especially because I have all assists off. And braking, it's the worst. It's just constantly locking the brakes. You'll see throughout this race there'll be quite a few sort of brake lock-ups. And wheel spin's not so bad because they've reduced the likelihood of wheel spin from 2011. So the wheel spin's not as big an issue. It still is an issue, and you still need to be a little bit careful so to not wear out the tyres so quickly, but it's not too bad. As you can see through that chicane there, I do cut it a little bit, but I don't get any sort of penalty or anything like that for it. So I'd sort of take a bit of a shortcut, but it's not too bad. Okay, let's come on to this next corner. That bollard is a bit evil as well in this one. In F1 2011, I believe you could sort of hit it and then just carry on flying. In this one, if you hit it at speed, you actually take off. It lifts the front of your car up and you fly into the barrier, so you really need to be careful into that corner. So as you can see there, adjusting my brake balance to the rearwards, again, just to try to stop a bit of front locking. Oh, I've run really close to that barrier there. Got to be a little bit careful on that one. I have quite a few times in practice lost my front wing. I think I've used something like 5 or 6 front wings in practice, just trying to push too hard, braking too late, locking the wheels and then flying straight on into the barrier. So I'll really try not to do this in this race. Only on lap 2 of 20, so I just need to take it easy, try not to damage my car, but also trying to pull away from Button behind me, who I'm now 2 seconds ahead of. So you see 3.6 seconds up on my first lap. That's up to be expected because it was from a standing start on my last lap. Okay, so all these corners are really quite tricky. They're really not easy to do, especially with all the bumps, but they're not too bad on the braking, those 2 corners. The chicane though, the hairpin, is really quite difficult because you've got to get really good brakes into there, and it's so easy. If you just go a little bit too fast, you run wide and you hit your front wing, or just at least get stuck in that corner. It's really difficult. That corner there, it's got a nasty bump right sort of on the apex that sort of unsettles the car, and it means quite often you have to correct it. Let's get into this nasty chicane with the bollard there. This corner you have to brake a lot earlier than in 2011. It's took me by surprise the first few practice laps how much earlier you have to brake in, because it was difficult in 2011 to not look at your real wheels in there, but it's even more difficult in 2012. So as you can see there, I've got 4 laps extra fuel for this whole race, so I've put it down to standard revs just to preserve a bit of fuel, because I'm 2.8 seconds ahead of Button now, which is a pretty good lead. I'm pretty happy with that. Fastest lap there, as you can see, 17.295. It's not too bad. Not sure what Button's lap times behind me was, but I suspect it was pretty close because I'm not exactly pulling away from him too fast, am I? Okay, so this is the hairpin I was on about. So down to 30 miles an hour. See, I touched the barrier there. It's really difficult. You really got to get down to sort of 35 miles an hour before you even turn in, pretty much, to get a good line in there. This corner is important as well for trying to get a good exit onto this in through this tunnel. In qualifying as well, interestingly, in 2011 you could use DRS all the way through that tunnel, whereas in real life they actually stop you from using it for safety. In 2012 they have actually introduced it so that the DRS will deactivate itself in the middle of that tunnel, so you can open it just as you exit the corner before, but then as soon as you enter the tunnel it deactivates itself, and then you can use it again once you exit the tunnel. So that's a good improvement, brings a bit more authenticity to the game, so I can't complain about that. So 6/10 down on this lap then, so it's not quite as good as my last lap, but I have got a lower fuel setting, so it's not all that bad, so I can deal with that one. Of course my lap time going to be then improved. No, so he's still 6/10 down, so it's a 17.9 that one from a 17.2 last lap, so still 3 seconds ahead of Button though, so it's alright, it's still going well. So it's a nasty bump there as well coming up there. It sort of unsettles the car a little, not in terms of sliding, but in terms of accelerating it. You don't accelerate as hard as you would expect because of those bumps. So staying right there as well because of that big bump again, as they do in real life. I probably could stay to the left, but again, I don't want it to unsettle the car. So back to this hairpin again. It's a little bit fast on the entry, but I go slower through the middle of it, so I'll get away with that one. Okay, again, this corner is really difficult to get for the tunnel. Yeah, I managed to get a good exit there. Using most of my cars, I generally go down to sort of 100, is it kilowatts perhaps? I'm not sure, 100k on the steering wheel through there, because then I use another 100 on this next little straight just after these tricky corners here, this tricky chicane. So there we go, so you can go right on the steering wheel, go right down to 0 there. I generally tend to use the steering wheel instead of the on-screen display sort of rev counter and the shift lights, the KERS, DRS. Or DRS, I do use the on-screen display just because there isn't anything in the cockpit for it. I'm not sure why I use this really. I think it's because when you go to say a lean mixture, the rev limiter will actually be on the sort of second light on the on-screen display on that red light there. The rev limiter stops there. But on the dash, it actually adjusts itself so that the rev limiter will always be right at the end of the light. So I think that's why I use it, just for a bit of consistency, regardless of which fuel setting I'm using. So we go another fastest lap, only about 200th faster than my last one, but there we go. Still trying to push now and pull away from Button a little bit, but also being careful not to touch the barriers, so I get very close to the barrier there. Yes, just going back to KERS, like I say, I use the in-steering wheel one. I think it's because I get more precise reading from it. So I can see exactly how much I've used, and generally I'll use the figures then, because using on the on-screen display one, it's difficult to tell how much you've used. But with the in-dash one there, as you can see, I can always get to say 100, if I want to say 100k, I want to save 100k of KERS, I can consistently do that, so that's why I use that one. So again, trying to get a good line through there, because I do gain quite a bit of speed through there, because the AI don't really use that curb, so as my car steps out again through that bump. Yeah, that chicane after the tunnel, I sort of try to maximise that corner, because like I say, the AI don't really use the curb, so I think that's pretty much where I'm gaining all my time, because the first and second sector, I'm see that 3.478 up on Button there, see what it is at the end of this sector here. But generally I lose time to in the first and third sector, but in the second sector is where I pull it back. So let's see then, 17.5 lap time, not too bad, 3.1, so yeah, they gained a little bit on me, I believe. Not a great deal, but like I say, I can only pull out really on the second sector generally. So this corner here is really quite difficult. I don't know if it's because I'm in a Caterham or what. As Alonso sets the fastest lap there. Not too much faster than mine though, so that's not too much of a worry. Yeah, going back to that corner, it's really quite difficult because you're sort of slowing down the whole time. You sort of can't really touch the brakes because you're trying to turn. You'll lock up the wheels, but you've also sort of got to slow down. So going into that corner, you're in 4th gear, then you slow down to in 3rd gear for the next corner. So it's really quite difficult to get that corner right, and it took me a little while actually to get it to be able to carry speed through there. So coming to this corner then, this braking point interestingly is the same as it was in 2011, whereas in quite a lot of the tracks the braking points are quite a lot earlier. So this again, the braking point is the same as it was in 2011, as my car steps out a bit there again. This is fully flat even with DRS in qualifying. That again, the braking point is very similar. I think it's because of the lower speed circuit perhaps, but somewhere like Monza I'm braking something like probably up to around 50 metres earlier through some of the corners than I was in 2011, so they've clearly made quite significant changes in 2012. My car steps out a little bit there through the last corner. So let's see what this lap time is going to be then. 17.390, that's not too bad. That's only sort of, what's that, about 10th-ish off my best lap time. I'm happy with that. So 3.2 seconds back to Button now, just maintaining that gap nicely. That's exactly what I want to be doing. So I'll be pit stopping at lap 9 then, so I've got 2 more laps to go. So ideally I want to have a nice big gap so that I can pretty much guarantee that he's not going to jump in the pit lane. In 2011 there was quite a big issue in the pit lane whereby if the car was say within a second behind you, you could actually, especially in something like a Caterham, wind up being held in the pit box for quite a while. I mean, I remember in 2010 it was really quite bad, as in you could sit there waiting for pretty much the whole field to come past before they'd release you. But in 2011 it wasn't so bad, but I did still find it did sometimes hold you a little bit too long. In 2012, I think it's very similar to 2011 really, but I mean I haven't had any issues with it so far, but I've always tried to maintain at least sort of 2 seconds or so to the car behind, just so I can pretty much guarantee I can get out of the pits cleanly without being held. So as my car steps out there again, that corner is really quite difficult actually, because it does step out, but if you overcorrect it, you can easily fly into the barrier. So you need to sort of wait to see if you need to correct it, and then if the slide continues for more than probably something like half a second, then you sort of correct it. But if not, you can leave it and it sort of corrects itself really. It's quite a difficult corner. So 17.694, 3/10 of my last lap. Ooh, as I get a bit of snap of oversteer there in the first corner. Yeah, see, again, the oversteer is an interesting one in this game. It took me a little while to get used to be honest. 2011, it gave you really quite a long time it waited for you to correct the oversteer. So you could get a slide on, even wait for probably about half a second or so before you needed to correct it, and then you correct it and bring it back. In this game, it feels more like 2010 in that you need to be really quick to correct it. I mean, 2010, you pretty much couldn't correct it. So I get a huge slide on there. Just about managed to recover it though. Yeah, so in this game, it feels more like 2010 in that you have to really catch the slides really quick, or you've spun pretty much. Although when you have spun, if you press the brakes, it generally auto-corrects you. So even if you've gone completely sideways, there's no chance of you recovering it. If you just hit the brakes, it'll bring you back to straight, which I think needs removing effectively. I was actually managed to not slide through that corner. Yeah, because it's a bit, you know, if I've spun out, fair enough, I want to take time to recover it, I want to take time to do it as quick as possible, but I think I should be punished in that it will take me 5 seconds to recover the spin, whereas if I can just smack the brakes and recover pretty much straight away. Ooh, another bit of oversteer there. I think my rear tyres are starting to go off on this car. Oh, there we go, perfect. Yeah, they are starting to be quite worn. Yeah, so on tyre wear, ooh, as I touched the barrier there, fortunately I didn't seem to damage my front wing, but I got to be a bit careful. Button's closing in on me as well, down to 2 seconds now. He's closing a second on me in the last couple of laps. I'm pitting at the end of this lap though, so I just need to make sure that I maintain that gap, if not a bit more. Yeah, going back to tyre wear, I did a recent tyre wear test. That was a 25% race at, I believe it was Singapore, and I managed to do a whole run really wide on that hairpin there. Down to 1.2 to button now. Ooh, a lot of pressure. I need to open this back gap out, make sure I don't get held in the pits. So yeah, going back to tyre wear, but I think in Korea perhaps it is scaled, because I found that in my tyre wear test, I found that it wasn't really scaled at all. As I cut the corner, I get a warning there for cutting the corner. That was quite bad. Yeah, they didn't seem to really scaled in my test that I did. I managed to do a whole race on the set of the super soft pretty much, barring the last lap. But in this race, as you can see there, look, my tyres are, I mean, they're not too bad, but I've done 9 laps, and they are quite worn. I wouldn't like to carry them much longer. I will be going slower and slower. So I'm not sure, as I come into the pits now, I'm not sure whether the tyre wear is different in Korea, or perhaps it's just because it's Monaco. I'm not really sure. Perhaps I should do another test on Korea mode there. As I turn my fuel mix to lean in the pit lane, because I don't need any power. Just save a little bit of fuel, not much, but a little bit. So I look behind me there to see how far back they are. Also change my tyres to make sure they give me the prime tyres, because sometimes they can alter the strategy. They get it wrong without you realising. So back up to Rich again then to get a good exit from here. Oh, so I smack it in the limiter a little bit there. So this corner, I thought it was going to be really difficult, because they've now, in this game, they give you a penalty when you cross that line, but it seems to be automated. I haven't really pushed it too much in there for fear of going over the line, but it does seem to be quite automated, really. I don't think you can go over the line. I mean, it is quite a difficult exit, to be fair, but I'd prefer to give you sort of full control at that exit, because it's just a big challenge at Monaco, isn't it? Trying to keep within that line or you get a penalty. So as you can see with the graphic on the right there, my tyres are stone cold, and I've got Vern right behind me, half a second behind me. I'm not really competing with him, but that's good, because I touched the barrier a little bit there. Not really competing with him, but it's good that he's there, because it keeps a little bit of a gap between him and, was it Button behind me? So that's always good that he's there. Just got to make sure he doesn't overtake me really, because that'd be really bad for me. So the tyres are starting to warm up now. As you can see, they've gone a sort of olivey colour, halfway between blue and green. Rear tyres are a little bit warmer. As you can see, I'm obviously using the rear tyres a little bit more. So they're getting a little bit more and more warmer here. With the tyre warm-up, I think that's improved as well over 2011. Especially tyre wear. In 2011, the tyre wear was heavily based on the distance you've done. So you could pretty much wheel spin out of every one of these corners, and it wouldn't affect your tyre wear too much. It would affect it a little bit, but not a lot. So I finished off using my curves there as Vern pits behind me. That was Webber just coming out of the pits there, so I've managed to stay ahead of him. That's good. Half a second as I crossed the line, but that's obviously a lot more than that once he's actually exited the pits. So yeah, going back to the tyre usage there. In 2011, like I said, it's mainly based on distance. You couldn't really affect it. So even if behind a safety car, for example, if you really don't use the tyres at all, it would still be wearing exactly the same as it was if you're at full race speed. But in this game, they have corrected that, so it's a lot more different. So if you will spin a lot, you will use your tyres more. If you lock them, you will use them more. If you're careful on them, you will also conserve them, which is very much what F1's been about this year and last year, is conserving your tyres, pitting at the right time, and just looking after your tyres all round really, and pushing at the right time. So it's good that they've now implemented that. I haven't really noticed it because I think I am sort of quite soft on my tyres. I do get emails once I exit these races that you guys won't see that say sort of well done on the tyre wear, your tyre wear's looking good. And I guess if I was wheel spinning a lot, locking my wheels a lot, understeering a lot, oversteering a lot, I guess they probably would say your tyre wear's a bit high, try and sort of back off a bit. But so fortunately it seems that I'm pretty good on my tyres. Again, go back to the sort of wheel spin, the traction situation. I think the traction's a little bit too much in this game, to be honest. So I set 17.6 there, and Webber is 4.6 behind me. That's a pretty good gap. If I can maintain that for the next 8 laps, I'll be a very happy man. So yeah, just going back to what in 2011 there. Well, going back to the tyre warm-up then. It's in 2011 I found that the AI I think came out of the pits with already warm tyres, whereas you came out of the pits with cold tyres. I didn't mind coming out of the pits with cold tyres. That's a good challenge. But the AI came out of warm tyres, so if you were racing, say Vettel in front of you, and he was within a second when you went into the pits, and also within a second when you came out of the pits, unfortunately he would be able to pull away from you quite easily, even if you were in, say, McLaren, because he would have warm tyres. They seem to have corrected this in F1 2012, because when they come out of the pits, they do seem to be, well, I seem to be actually faster than them, so I guess I'm a bit quicker on cold tyres, so that at least they've corrected that again. So all these little tweaks that they made between 2011 and 2012, that for me it makes a big difference. Obviously they've made a few bigger tweaks, like the tweaks to the engine, few tweaks to tracks, and obviously a big tweak to the menus and the game mode system. But yeah, they've made quite a few tweaks. I read a few reviews that basically said they haven't changed Korea, it's still the same as it was in 2010. And I disagree with that. I mean, they've overhauled the whole menu system, which is good, but it's not really fundamental. But they have changed it quite a bit. There's a achievement for changing team mid-season, so you can obviously change teams mid-season now, which is a good thing. I believe that you can be a first driver mid-team as well, because before you had to wait to the end of the season to be a proper first driver. So they've made sort of all little tweaks like that, and you get a lot more emails now. Like I said, I get the email about tyre wear. So overall, it's a lot better. You do get a lot more. So I made contact with that barrier there. Fortunately, again, get away with it without damaging my front wing because it's such a slow speed corner. That's another thing, damage. It hasn't really changed since last year or even since 2010, really. You still can bang your front wing like that, fine, and it doesn't damage it at all. I think they should make that a bit more sort of vulnerable to being damaged, because in real F1 you see people losing bits of their front wing just by little tap on the walls or little tap on other cars, giving them punctures. You see them losing sort of end plates and things like that, and it reduces the downforce. I think they should make it, as I run a little wide in that corner, get away with it though. I think they should make the rear wing really quite fragile as it is in real life. I know there's only so much they can do with the license, things like that. I know they can't damage the cockpit area where the driver is. They can't do anything to that at all, which for good reason. You don't want horrific accidents where the driver's feet are hanging out, like does occasionally happen in sort of real Formula 1. But yeah, I think the damage system does need improving. Like when you have a big crash, both your wheels tend to just fly off randomly. And it's just certain things like that do seem a little bit fixed. I think it should be a bit more sort of flexible with what you're actually doing, what you've actually hit, sort of thing. It doesn't really seem to be too flexible with that, which is a bit unfortunate. But again, we've already got a fairly good damage system, so I'm happy they've improved the engine and the AI and things like that instead of the damage this year at least. And I personally play offline a lot more than I play online, so last year they concentrated more on the online gameplay, which I wasn't very happy about because it pretty much meant they left the offline gameplay alone. They did tweak the engine obviously, but in terms of the AI difficulty, the career system, it was all very, very similar to what was in 2010 as well last year. Like I said, this year they've concentrated again on the offline mode and just trying to make it an overall better game, which I think was a really good move because they have improved it a lot. Obviously the engine they've improved, they've added a lot more game modes, which I pretty much the first thing I did when I got the full game was go into Champions mode. I really like that mode. It's a bit of a shame there was only 6, and it is a shame you can only set it to hard mode. Same with Season Challenge, you should better set it to expert, but it's much improved the offline gameplay. And the AI, a lot of people are saying in my comments and sort of just around the web really that they don't seem to have improved much. They have improved. They have improved. I think in terms of raw speed, perhaps not. Obviously, it's a different engine. You know, it's tweaks to the engine, so it's a bit difficult to tell. But I think in terms of raw speed, they have improved some. Not a great deal, but a little bit. But I think what's mainly changed in terms of raw speed is your raw speed. So before, you could sort of ride curbs too much, and you know there was certain advantages you could get over the AI. This year, it's a lot different. So you can't pull as many advantages over the AI. So that's quite a big change there. But I think the biggest change to the AI is the aggression in the race. As I nearly fly into the barrier, I had to correct it. It's a bit scary when you do that because you have to steer into the barrier to correct your speed, to correct your slide, and just hope that it recovers before you actually hit the barrier, and then pull it back again once it's in a straight line again. So going back to the AI's aggression, I mean in the race, their racecraft is much improved over 2011. During the starts, I still find they're a little slow. They're not too bad, but they are a little slow. It could be improved. But once you get past the sort of first half a lap or so, as I do an 18.1, that's quite a slow lap. I need to speed up a bit really, otherwise they're going to be caught up on me. I've only got 4 or 5 laps left to go. So the racecraft, I mean, I believe it was my first career race in Melbourne. I think it was Webber. It was one of the Red Bulls. I overtook him halfway through the first lap, and then on the end of the first lap, he overtook me in the straight. I didn't have any curves left. It was powerless to defend it, and I didn't expect it because it was my first race. He just flew straight on past me. I was defending the inside. He flew straight round past me down the outside. Bearing in mind, he hasn't got DRS at this point. He just probably used a bit of curves on me. Flew straight around the outside, and then was ahead of me. I couldn't do anything by the time we got to the braking point. He was too far ahead. So things like that. I mean, that should have perhaps been in last year in 2011, but it is much improved. It was much needed last year, but it is in this game, so that's a good thing. Because I found last year you could pretty much just sort of twitch the wheel as if you're going to turn in on him, and he would back off. But they are much more aggressive this year. But they haven't made him too aggressive, so they don't fly into the side of you. They don't, brake way too late up the inside or anything like that. They're fittingly aggressive. They're aggressive when they need to be, which is good. Also, last year I found that they didn't really seem to use the fuel mixture, not that I could tell, but this year they definitely do, because your engineer comes on the radio and says about they've got sort of rich fuel mix or lean fuel mix if they're conserving fuel, or they're trying to catch you, they've got rich, so it's quite interesting from that point of view. So I do a 17.5, that's a bit better. If I can maintain that sort of time, I should get a reasonably comfortable win by the end of this race. So going to the the fact that I'm leading in a Caterham, if I had a few comments on my qualifying video that they're sort of really unrealistic. It is, but Monaco has been slated for quite some time as a track where the driver can really make a difference. And I find that's true with this game as well. You can make a big difference in this track because it is really. I mean, you can see my lap times at the moment are fluctuating between sort of from about 2 seconds from a 16.9 my best lap to a 19. Perhaps I think it was a 19.1. Yes, my one of my worst laps. So and that's not. I'm not making huge mistakes. I'm not colliding with the barrier, locking up. Always coming to a crawl, having to reverse or anything silly like that. I'm only making minor mistakes, but it's making a big difference. So I get a bit more consistency there. Only 0.3 hundredths of a second slower than my previous lap time. So you can make a big difference in Monaco as a driver. But I also found that in qualifying I was a lot faster than I am in the race for some reason. In qualifying, generally I'm around a second or so off pole, which again is unrealistic, but there we go. But in the race I tend to be 2 or 3 seconds slower than the fastest lap. It's a big difference in the race. I'm not too sure why that is, but I just seem to be faster in qualifying. So in this race I did manage to get on pole, which is good for me anyway. Possibly unrealistic, but like I say, driver does make a big difference. So once I'd got on pole, well actually to be fair, it started raining at the end of Quali 3. I only did 1 lap in Quali 3 right at the beginning. I thought it was good enough for pole, so I went back to the garage and just fast forwarded it, which again you can see if you go into the link to my description to qualifying. Then I saw a bit of rain towards the end of the session, so that might have been why I got pole perhaps, but it was a good lap time. I was very happy with it. In the race here, I've got a sort of, what am I now, about 4 second or so gap to Webber, which again perhaps is unrealistic in the Caterham, but I mean, I can tell you how I was sweating by the time I'd finished this race. It's not an easy race at all. It's 4 tenths down my previous lap there. Again, that's probably going to be fast enough because 4 second gap to Webber, that should be comfortable enough to stay that sort of speed. So I run a little wide into that corner. Yeah, so by the end of this race, I mean, it's a 20-lap race. It's a long race. I think it was around sort of 25 minutes, half an hour or so. It's really quite a long race. So by the end of it, I was sweating, and it was, you know, it's not easy because I'm obviously pushing hard, trying to sort of be consistent, but also just trying not to lock up, just trying to take it easy whilst trying to push hard. It's a really difficult balance. And of course, because it keeps sort of breaking out on me, I have to keep correcting it, and it uses a surprising amount of energy, actually. I don't know how much, you know, I don't know whether you guys are sweating when you're playing it, but at the end of some of these races, I certainly do, depending on how much, sort of, how hard I've tried, really. But yeah, this race in particular, I thought it was a really difficult race. I mean, I haven't damaged our front wing yet. I thought I did really well so far to not to. I have collided with the barrier a couple of times, but no sort of big collisions as yet. And it's like I said, I did use about 5 or 6 front wings in practice. It is a really difficult track to drive around. It's not easy at all. As I go a little bit too fast in that corner there. Especially with the bumps, like I say, in this bump here, see, it sort of steps out on me. I don't actually have to correct it in that corner, but you've just got to always be aware, and it's just, you don't get any brakes, as the drivers say, and they said that in Singapore as well. You don't get any brakes. There's no long straights. Just sort of just take a minute and, you know, just relax, even if it's for 5-10 seconds. There's, you know, you get this little straight here, which isn't much of a straight because it does bend. You've still got to be a little bit wary. You're only just getting to 7th gear, I believe, or was it 6th in the race? Let's have a look. Oh no, it's 6th gear in the race. So yeah, it's not exactly a break. You don't even get to 7th. Through the tunnel, it's a bit of a longer straight as I start my last lap there. 18.4 last lap. 2 laps left to fuel, plenty of fuel, but I'm not going to bother turning my mix up because I don't want to risk getting too much wheel spin and spinning out. I've still got plenty of gap behind me. If you look on the mini-map there, you can see the back markers, which the yellow one is also my teammate in the Caterham, Heikki Kovalainen. It's interesting how I'm getting towards lapping them, and I won't have a chance to lap them now. They're too far ahead, but obviously we're in identical cars. It's quite an interesting one. Oh, so I have a big slide on there. Got to be careful. Don't want to lose it in the last lap. It's been a long race. Right, okay, so yeah, through this tunnel, it's a bit of a straight, but again, it's got a bend in it, so it's not a proper straight. Getting up to 7 gear, you only get to 156 miles an hour on that one, and you're straight back on the brakes again, and you've always got to be careful. You don't get any brakes at all. Then, of course, you're thinking about when to use curves, thinking about your strategy, thinking about what tyres you're on, whether the tyres are too worn, whether you should come in again, about the gap behind you, your current times, just trying to be consistent, trying to avoid that bollard, trying to avoid these barriers. It's so difficult. So 2.1 seconds ahead of Webber there. Then last couple of corners, looks like I'm going to win it, provided I don't crash in these last couple. So just trying to take it nice and easy, and there we go. Home straight then, 2 seconds ahead of Webber. Look at that. Victory swerves, that is. So there we go, my first proper win in the Caterham. I have won before, I believe, earlier in the season, but that was due to the weather conditions. So this race was all dry, and I managed to win it still. Very happy with that result there. Like I say, it was not an easy race. I was very happy, put it that way, when I finished this race. Perhaps even a little bit of cheering, because like I say, it's such a difficult race. So let's have a look then. Fastest lap time, 16.9 mine was. Next best 17.2.
Championship. Keep this up, and we'll be crowning you champion at the end of the season.
There we go, I'm top of the championship in a Caterham. I did have a suggestion to show these tables, so here we go, I'm showing them for you. There we go, and I will just show the celebrations after race here. There we go, there I am, look, getting out my car. Look at that, look, ecstatic. There we go, I believe I get down and look at that, nice punch of the air there. There's Webber, congratulating me. Happy days. There we go then. Well, that was that then. My first commentated career video. Let me know what you thought of it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.